We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And our format this week might change midway through. Tom's got an out this week, and we're starting a bit late, so I might be carrying on at the very end with some of the simpler questions just on my own. But yeah, doing the whole context thing, I'm reticent to do it because, oh my goodness, the news this week was not good at all. But want to mention, I suppose, I'm not, how do I word it? There was a mass shooting, right? There was another mass shooting in the U.S., Minneapolis Catholic Church, where children were shot. 2 of them killed, 14 of them injured. People in their 80s injured as well. So, I mean, just absolutely horrific. But, don't want to not say it and not pass along our sympathies. And, yeah, just terrible news. Awful. Yeah, I don't know. We don't have any words for this stuff.
No,
yeah.
I don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say either. On top of that,
I won't say anything.
Yeah, in Afghanistan, there was just a huge and deadly earthquake. Hundreds and hundreds of people have died in the earthquake in Afghanistan this week. So, just tragedy all around. The conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine continue on, seemingly unabated and seemingly escalating at this point. It definitely doesn't look like ceasefires to me. So, yeah. Just
depends on your definition of ceasefire.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't define it as not firing,
and also
it is definitely a ceasefire.
The definition of illegal in the USA seems to be very strange. I guess this is this week's happier news by contrast, in that the tariffs that President Trump enacted, the ones specifically that were enacted strictly via executive order,
right,
were in a lower court originally said to be illegal, not constitutional. Then an appeals court upheld that this past week, meaning that those particular tariffs are declared illegal at this point. But somehow a thing that has been declared illegal by a lower court and an appeals court is still allowed to continue, because they just anticipate that it will be appealed to the Supreme Court, and it's anticipated that the Supreme Court will overturn those decisions. So they're like, yeah, just go ahead and keep doing them anyway. They are illegal, but we're not going to stop them, which seems very strange. And I don't claim to quite understand that, but that's the happy news this week. That's how good it's been.
So, I don't want to talk about any of that.
Nope.
So I'm not gonna.
That was it. That was just context. So
I'm not gonna.
When I listen back to this episode sometime, like in the future, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what was going on that
You
week.
will be mad at yourself for having brought any of this up, because you'll wish that you wouldn't be reminded that these things happened.
No, but then I'm, when I just mention things vaguely, I'm confused when I hear it later. I'm like, what was
true.
it? What horrors were it that were going on that particular week? So, this fills in the gaps.
There you go.
Done.
I was very busy, so
Yes.
I didn't notice a lot of that, unfortunately, because that's what happens when you have your nose to the grindstone. So, things are happening. As I said, bought the house.
Yeah.
Needed some work. Work is being done. Some of it being done well.
Okay.
Some of it less well.
Yep. Sounds about right.
It was like, my wife's like, oh, the guy installed the towel rack in the bathroom. I walked in and went, well, it's not level. She goes, what? I'm like, you're the engineer. She's like, well, I didn't really look at it. I'm like, fair enough. Fair enough. She was actually working at the house, and he was just in the other room, and she walked by it and saw that it was up there and was happy, and that's good. It's not level, so he's doing it again, but it's very...
given that we all have apps on our phones that can be a level at this point, like I'm not going to trust that to be like the most accurate thing, but it's considerably better than nothing.
I could put up a towel rack not level. Let's put it that way.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
It's very. I mean, I think that's something I could do, but that's why I'm paying somebody else to do it, so that
how
it will
does
be.
one do that? I mean, honestly, you
You'd
don't
be
need
surprised. I am very good.
You don't need an actual level, and you don't need the level app. You could just put a towel on it afterward, and that'll show you if it's
It'll
sloped
slide to
and
one
slanted.
side. It wasn't that unlevel, but in more good news, if you want to call it good news, my wife is now back on board with having the theater room.
Okay, hey, that's terrific news. That's the happiest thing I've heard all week.
So I've started. So we, we were talking about renting a truck to go to the storage unit, get everything out of the storage unit, and get everything moved over. And then we couldn't find a truck because they were either too big or not available or ridiculously expensive. So
like just a U-Haul?
Yeah.
Are U-Hauls not plentiful and available in Florida? That seems really strange.
You would think.
Yeah.
But they are expensive, and then they had limited miles, and it was like 45 miles was like the maximum miles you could go. And I'm like, the place is 30 miles away.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know how else to do the calculation.
That's
we
bizarre.
Can't return. So it was very strange, at least what she found. So we ended up just, I was like, well, let's just go over there. I had already taken, on Saturday, I'd gone over by myself and taken a couple of boxes in the truck. Because the truck has we have a small Tacoma. It has a bike rack on the back, and I have 4 bikes over there. So it holds 2 bikes on the bike rack, and then I could fill the truck up with boxes. But it's been raining like off and on, mostly on. Constantly. So Saturday was looking pretty good. So I ran over there, picked up a bunch of boxes and a couple of chairs. One of the chairs almost fell out of the back of the truck because I'm not very good at this. And grabbed a couple of bikes. And my wife said, "Oh, is it almost empty?" I'm like, "It is. It is not even close. Like it's indistinguishable from before."
a little bit of moving in has begun. It's the first sign.
On Sunday, she's like, "We'll go back and grab some more and just see how it goes." But it rained all day Sunday, so instead we shopped for furniture, which went poorly. And then yesterday, which was Labor Day, Monday, she had the day off, and I took the day off, and we made 2 full trips with two cars at the same time. So 4 carloads and got everything. Now it's all at the house. The storage unit is empty.
Wow.
That room that's going to be the theater room now has boxes in it that are definitely boxes that people have sent me from AVRant. With full of speakers and stuff. And I'm like, these are the boxes that are going in for this stuff. So let's put it in here because this is where they live. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
And now it's now she's like, well, maybe this weekend we can move the apartment over there. Or we just move in. I'm like, okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess we could probably try to do that. We can't.
Right.
We're going to have to pay somebody to move us. It's just going to be, there's just too much furniture involved.
Yeah.
And she is definitely, I mean, we're both helpful in this, but some of it's very heavy and it's a lot of work. And we have a 16-year-old son who's constantly got stuff that he needs to have done or be done or whatever. It's just going to be, we can pay somebody to come here, pack the whole apartment up, move it all over there, unload all the boxes and drive away, and they'll be done in 6 hours.
Well, yeah, and I mean this is a local move, so moving companies exist for that very reason. That's what
I think that's what we're going to end up doing, because it'll just be so much easier just to have, because it's getting the beds over there and the furniture and everything else, and they'll just wrap it all up and throw it over there.
My concern is all the contractor work that needs to be done in the new place done.
That is, so the big thing was painting.
Sure.
And that is done.
Oh, wow.
And the guy did an amazing job. He did it in a week.
Excellent.
And I mean, it wasn't cheap, but he did a really good, I mean, there were stairs that go up to the ADU, which is like an apartment on top of the garage that looked terrible. I mean, they looked awful, and the paint was peeling, and the wood was all kind of
new construction. Why
not? Yeah, new construction, kind of warped and looked whatever. And until now, my wife said, "Oh, they're out there sanding one day." I was like, "Great, that's a good start, I suppose." And they'll throw some paint on there, and it'll be as good as it is. They look brand new.
They should, for being brand
unbelievably like they're smooth. And they look as good as they probably did the day they were installed, if not better.
Probably better. So I'm guessing better.
I was very pleased.
Good.
So yes, things are progressing. Will I be in there next week? Probably not, but maybe. But I will not be here next week, so you will not know.
Sounds to me like the painter would have done a better job installing towel racks.
I am thinking back and wondering if that is a service he provides, because one of the things
I'll bet he could figure it out.
I bet he could. I bet they'd be level. They might not be very secure, but they'll be level. So yeah, that's another thing that's going on. But
okay,
we are.
That's
making progress.
That is a lot of progress. So yes, congratulations on all of that.
Nose
I know
to
you're tired. I know that it's
I am very tired.
It's a lot of stress
because
and movement, but
we didn't have time to do the yard at the other house,
and
I had to do that this morning. I didn't even get it all done, but I had to run back to the podcast, and I'm still half an hour late.
So it's been a lot, but in a way, it's kind of this is a much more pleasant type of stress than what
I suppose
precipitated all of this. No kidding. I would much rather have this version of the stress you're going under, because this is like forward movement stress, much better.
So people talk about how after childbirth there's some hormones released or something that helps women forget whatever the trauma, and that's
so this is said. I'm not sure how much stock I'm going to put into all of this, but
I'm not. That sounds like something some dude made up,
doesn't it? Though
I mean, I don't think that. I think that that's right, like in line with hysteria being a diagnosis,
right?
For things.
Yes, yeah,
but. I will tell you from my my brain has done a phenomenal job of blocking out most of what happened a year ago. But there are certain moments, that I remember so vividly, as if I were still in that. I could put myself right back there, like a flashback in a movie. That's how
that is post-traumatic stress
for me. And I sitting in the middle of my house after almost everything was out in the yard. A lot of stuff had been taken away, and sitting on a box or something, and with a hammer in my hand, going, I'm just too tired to do anything else. And then looking at the walls and knowing that behind them is moisture and mold growing and stuff, and then just standing up and working for 3 more hours. I just remembered that moment so vividly. That this is a better kind of stress.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So, anything going on with you, Rob?
Nothing big news. Just taking a couple of ants to a couple of appointments later this afternoon, but nothing particularly amazing about that. But it's all good.
All right,
doing our weekly chores.
Sure. Let's. Well, first of all, I guess let's talk about the contest or the giveaway from last week. So last week, Jack had about a month ago, Jack had offered an OmniMic up to one of our lucky listeners to win, and he would ship it to them, and we had announced it, and then I think people kind of forgot about it because of things. And then we announced it again, and then they remembered because
we said it was the last chance, and it was the last chance. It was the last chance. That wasn't
and
a lie.
And they came out of the woodworks. So, as we mentioned last week, Dan D won the random draw for Jack's OmniMic. The two of them have been in touch, and Jack has said he shipped it to Dan. Shipping it to Dan should be no problem. Jack was happy to have found a fun way to continue the OmniMic's usefulness rather than just recycling it. And Dan has said that once he's done using it himself, he'll be open to sending it on to the next person through our podcast once again. So you may have another chance.
It's the Brotherhood of the Traveling OmniMic.
You know what we should do is put everybody should get like a little piece of tape or whatever, and like make a little flag that's connected to the cord, and just write their name on it, and just keep it going all the way through.
That sounds like fun.
That would be good.
All right. Yeah, so I just wanted to include that little update because, that once in a while there's a weird thing where, the person whose name is drawn, something changes or they're moving or whatever it might be, or the person who's doing the giving away the item has complications. So it was good news. They got in touch. Shipping should be no problem. So, yeah, it's all a happy update, and Dan is happy and Jack is happy and we're all happy.
Everybody's
so that was all good stuff.
So what did you watch this week, Rob? Anything?
I did indeed. I watched one movie this week. So this is on Apple TV Plus. This is an Apple TV Plus production in association with Skydance, but this was prior to the Skydance buying Paramount. So that's all taken place in the background there. But the movie is called The Gorge. So this is a 2025 movie starring Miles Teller.
Feels like a hole. Is it a hole?
It's a big old hole in the ground. It's a gorge. But yes, this is starring Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy in very close to a just two people in this movie. There are some other actors, including a very well-known actor that I won't give away because it's a little bit of a on-screen surprise when they show up. But pretty much a two-hander, so kind of similar 2 weeks in a row for me. Watched The Lighthouse last week and The Gorge this week. Both of them very, very much close to being just two-person performances, two-character performances. But yeah, this was directed by Scott Derrickson. Know him from having directed the first Doctor Strange movie in the Marvel Universe. Also did The Black Phone, which was a terrific movie. I really, really liked The Black Phone. But
I've seen that.
Earlier on, he had done the Keanu Reeves remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, which was not particularly great. So a few little hits and misses for this director. But this movie, The Gorge, I want to give it a fair amount of credit in that it is very much a genre blending film. The sort of tags in there are romance, action, horror, which is pretty much right. It is blending those three genres, which you don't always expect to be blending. Romance, action, and horror often go together, but blending a romance tale in there as well.
Well, I mean, if you think about like Terminator, that's that.
I suppose, yeah.
That those movies, they always had to have a sex scene someplace in it. So Is that a romance? I don't really think so. But
and so yeah, this movie as it goes along. So on the one hand, because it doesn't follow the sort of expected narrative beats, there's maybe the criticism of, okay, you're not really following established narrative beats, but that is obviously intentional. They're trying to be like, okay, let's not do just the expected normal predictable thing. Let's try and change it up and do something a little bit unexpected here. So that's where I want to give this movie credit, is that, it's trying to blend these genres. It's trying to do some unexpected things. I really enjoyed I think it's about the first hour, which is pretty much the romance side of this thing, with just a little bit of sci-fi thrown into it. We're not really into the horror section of it at all for the first hour of this. And what I really enjoyed for the first hour is it's almost dialogue free. There are some scenes of dialogue, including one of the characters that is not Miles Teller or Anya Taylor-Joy, who is only there briefly, is there to just be an exposition dump, and he is forced to race through it at breakneck speed, and because there's basically a handoff that's going. So sort of the overall premise of this is there is this gorge, as you might expect. It is a mysterious gorge. No one really knows what happens within this gorge, but for some reason it is a gorge that runs north to south in an undisclosed location. It's hidden from satellite view. It's a very top secret gorge. And then the Western powers, it's not like just the United States, it's like the Western powers as having been established right at the end of World War II. The Western powers guard the west side of the gorge, and the Eastern powers guard the east side of the gorge. So there's sort of a cooperation between powers that were against each other during the Cold War, but there's something very important about this gorge, but no one really knows what it is. And so it's Miles Teller on the west side, and it's Anya Taylor-Joy on the east side. And so the person that Miles Teller is relieving is the one who does this whole exposition dump and goes through it very quickly. But post that, it's like a dialogue-free movie because they are on opposite sides of this gorge and there is no way to talk to each other, but they're kind of, through writing and looking through binoculars and stuff, trying to communicate little messages back and forth between one another and kind of falling in love with each other because they're two very, very damaged people. The whole idea of why they're able to be there guarding this gorge is because, they've got nobody else in their lives and they've got mysterious and military-based pasts and, the very, very damaged people, but, they're completely isolated on either sides of this gorge and sort of falling in love through little messages that they're able to send each other but not able to converse, just in spoken language. So I really really enjoyed that whole setup of this. And then, like I say, it tries to do some unexpected things, getting into the action and horror genres of this movie. And it's a little bit hard to predict everything that's going on. I thought the special effects in this movie, I don't exactly know what the budget was on this, but I looked up and it's two smaller special effects houses. It's not like Weta or Industrial Light and Magic or, big names that we've known. It was two smaller special effects houses that I haven't actually heard of before. I thought they did some really good work. The exteriors were predominantly shot in Norway, but there are some external scenes that are have obviously been done in CGI. And I thought they did a really good job. I thought that it looked realistic. I thought that the characters looked like they were actually there and weren't just pasted in front of a green screen. And yeah, the being that it's horror, there are some creature effects, not to give away anything there, but I thought all of those were done really well. I at first thought maybe it was Industrial Light and Magic or Weta or something like that. They were up to that sort of level of quality. So that I thought was really top tier. And so yeah, if I have a criticism of this movie, I thought that it's one of those ones where I'm looking back on it and thinking back on, okay, if I had sort of the chance to rewrite some of this, I thought that there was perhaps more potential in this movie than what ultimately ended up playing out on screen. I thought that they established some really good themes and some character development, and I thought I had a good idea of where the character arcs were going to go. And I think my number one criticism is I felt as though the character arcs didn't quite fully complete and resolve by the end of this movie. I didn't feel like we quite got all the way to the end of, like, when you have damaged characters like this, and both of them are damaged, it's like, well, you've got a couple of options for what those character arcs can be. Either they can sort of find redemption in themselves, find self-forgiveness, and do that kind of growth. You can have the, the sadder ending where, it feels like you're getting there, but then it doesn't quite, get to the full feeling of redemption. It can turn completely on its head and do a 180 and go deeper down, but I'm not going to give away what the arcs are, but I didn't feel like it fully resolved. And honestly, I felt like if this movie had ended, I'm talking literally 20 or 30 seconds earlier than it did, that it would have been a more poignant, and I would have enjoyed the very end of this movie more if they had chopped it off and not had what is literally the last line of dialogue. I felt like the very last line of dialogue kind of cheapened the ending of this movie, and I really didn't like it. I'm like, okay, just cut it off. There was an obvious moment that they could have cut it off, and I felt like would have been a more poignant ending. So I was a little bit disappointed by that, because I mostly enjoyed this movie going up to it. Like I said, I really enjoyed the first hour of it. So this is a movie where I give it a lot of credit. I have a lot of respect for it. I didn't feel it was perfect. I didn't love it. I felt like it was tiny. I wish it had ended 20 seconds earlier, but outside of all that, I give it a thumbs up. It's worth a watch. There's some interesting stuff going on here. And the acting, the two of them, a lot relies on that. I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy has her, very distinctive characteristic, extremely large eyes. And there's one moment, just one line that Miles Teller gets to deliver to her where she just does an eye reaction that I thought was really, really good. I really loved the reaction that she gave in that moment. So yeah, lots of positives, not entirely so, but a thumbs up from me for The Gorge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I can get my wife to get Apple Plus or whatever it's called these days, because there's definitely a couple of things on there I want to watch.
Oh yeah,
and Hulu's about to expire.
Yeah, for a month or
and
two.
I didn't change my credit card, and my credit card has been changed for me because my wife keeps losing errors. So, so I think I'm just going to let Hulu expire and then wait to see what happens with this whole Disney Plus.
Yeah, the
Hulu
merging
thing
into a single app and all of that.
Yeah. Kind of wait to see that. My wife did decide on a lark. I don't know what caused this. I didn't ask because I was just happy she wanted to watch a movie. She said she wanted to watch My Cousin Vinny, which I have not seen since it was on VHS.
Yeah, it's been ages since I've watched that movie. So yeah, I do a rewatch of that one for sure.
Yeah. So in 2025 eyes of a 50-plus year old person, that movie's very different in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the world
still
and
holds
context
up.
has changed.
It still holds up, but Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei, as a couple, and Joe Pesci wearing what is obviously a wig.
Right,
Like
yes.
it's so like I remember seeing this when I was I was in probably high school, maybe middle, maybe college, maybe early college. The last time I saw this movie, and it never occurred to me that man's hair was not his hair, but it is definitely not his hair. And he is so old. And I'm just like, you are so old. And like, why would she?
Yeah, she was quite young when that movie was made.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I will forever. I hope Marissa Tomei is one of the actors that I am desperately trying not to find out more about because I love her. And one of the reasons I love her is because my wife was in line in the sandwich shop in West Hollywood, and Marissa Tomei turned around and was in front of my wife and said, "Oh, your baby's so cute," and that was my son. Okay, and that's it. That's okay. I'm gonna forever love Marissa Tomei because she. I don't think there's an
R in her name, isn't it? Tomei.
Torme, whatever. I don't know. Who cares? It's Marissa Tomei. Anyways, she's amazing in this movie, and did she win something for it? I feel like she did.
Yeah, she won an Oscar.
What? How? Like, how could you not give her an award for her performance?
Okay. Well, they did.
So amazing, to watch her throughout this entire thing, and him just shutting her down over and over again, and to have at the end, it sort of takes away because he figures it out and then leads her to it on the stand because he already knows.
Right.
He's already figured out what has happened, and they've set it up in that he is also knows things about cars. For those of you that have not seen this movie, first of all, why? It's on Hulu. Go see it. You should, or you can pay like $1.99 to rent it on Amazon or something. So go watch this movie. But he figures it out and then leads her to it, and they've set it up in that he is also a car guy, so he kind of knows. Sure. He's been working at it. He's been doing that for years as well. So they both know. But how much better would it have been from a writing perspective if she had figured it out and led him to it instead of the other way around? I felt like that was a real. I mean, that's a product of its times. Yeah. Too, but because.
I don't know.
Whatever. But
I feel like the movie still works.
It still works. It still works, but it was just this one little point. Like, how much better would it have been had she? Because her whole motivation, but one of her big motivations is just she wants to get married, and they're not going to get married until he wins a case. Right. That's her sort of thing. I have forgotten a lot of this movie.
Me too.
I'd forgotten a ton of it. It is so worth the rewatch. Even some movies do not hold up at all. This one holds up fine. Okay. It's perfectly watchable, and there's nothing in there that's truly offensive other than that wig, which is truly offensive.
That's not so bad. That's not so bad by today's standards.
It is not. But that performance by Marissa Tomei is just a delight. I mean, spend the entire time just like wishing everybody else would shut up and let her talk more. I just want her to keep doing stuff because she's like everything, like her eye rolls, her reactions to how people talk to her, she walks in a room with her sunglasses on and like, you're like, is there anything else on the screen right now? Because I can see nothing. She just commands it.
It's the accent too, though.
There's that. So I've told this story before, and maybe a handful of times before in this podcast, but when I was in high school, I had directed a one-act play, and that play went to a competition, and that competition, we did very well at. But throughout the course of the competition, I watched a bunch of other one-act plays, and we talk about stage presence a lot, and stage presence is this ephemeral thing that people have where they can walk on a stage and everybody stops what they're doing and looks at them.
It factor.
They just can't. You can't help but pay attention to that person. Yep. And in the course of this this experience I had, there was a one-act play, and this one actress walked onto the stage, and I was like, I mesmerized.
Yep.
Could not look. Did not say a word.
Mhm.
Didn't come in loud. Didn't come in, quickly. Just took a couple of steps on the stage, kind of staring at the other, or focused on the other actor that was on the stage, who I could not tell you if they were a human or a chair.
Right.
I mean, I really don't know if there was. They were paying attention to something. I think it was a human. I don't know, because once they walked on the stage, everything else disappeared. And I was blown away by that experience. And I have forever tried to have it again. And watching Marissa Tomei walk into any room in that movie was as close as I've ever gotten. Yeah. She just walks in and it's just like, okay. Whatever. Joe Pesci's there, I think. I don't know. So great movie. Everybody should see it.
All right.
This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to the website, find our shows or show notes. In the show notes, there'll be links to any products or articles that we refer to, as well as a link to our Flickr album, which have all the pictures that we will be referencing during the course of this podcast. If you want to find us on social media, facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant, where those pictures that are in the Flickr album will be included in the video, so you can listen to it. And if we're talking about pictures, you can look over and see what it is. And I think even, don't you show like the links to, like, if we're talking about a product, you'll go to the link or whatever? Do you show the actual product?
Nope, not during the video.
Okay. All right. Well,
but the
that
links
doesn't
are in
happen
the show notes.
because Rob doesn't love you.
In the video description, we've got the links to the products or the articles that we're referencing. They are down there for your use and perusal.
If you want to contact Rob directly, it's rob@avrant.com. His social is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I did answer a question this week, by the way. Somebody asked about whether or not lens shift distorts the image, and I responded to that.
You responded to that. All right.
I did. All right. Let's talk about listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, you support the podcast in some way. Gosh darn it, I forgot to look up.
If you got any PayPal donations, all right. Well, while you do that, I can go ahead and say that one of the ways you can support us financially is through Patreon. So our address there is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. You can go there if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So at the moment, we have 125 patrons doing that monthly automatic donation. So a big thank you to all of you for your financial support.
And if you want to support us directly, you can go to, do you always say the PayPal? I wasn't paying attention.
I didn't say the PayPal. I said the Patreon.
PayPal.com/ no, I don't know. That's right.
Go to our website.
I am. Go to the website, avrant.com, and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. Which will send you to a PayPal donation site. We have no unique PayPal donations this week, but you could be you next week. So there you go.
Could be.
If you don't support us financially, figure out some other way to support us, and we'll mention it here. John T. sent a movie code for me to test, which I missed somehow.
It's in there. It's one of those emails. I mean, it was a fairly lengthy question, and then the image of the movie code was down at the bottom, so I can see how you would have overlooked that, because it wasn't just sending the movie code and nothing else in the email. But thank you to John for sending that in. Very nice of you.
All right. And we got notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from John M., which is a different John. John M. says, congratulations to me on my new home. Thank you very much. I'll let you know how I feel about it once I move in. I will tell you that everybody who's seen, like, inside of the home, like in a wall or in the ceiling or in the attic or whatever, they've all said, oh my God, this home was really well built. They just didn't do a good job with the fit and finish at the end.
I mean, I'll take that. I'd rather have the much better
my
bones and structure than the
very excited. I guess there's like metal trusses, and then there's also, instead of 2x4, some of the walls are supported by aluminum.
Okay.
Aluminum things. I don't know.
Just metal studs, or
metal aluminum studs. It's in some of the walls. I don't really know what that means, but sounds good, I guess. I don't know. My house might be the only thing standing at the bottom of the ocean when when the ocean finally does overtake Florida. So John M said, congratulations to me, Phil, Kris, John T, Dan D, Jack, Andrew, and Eric. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, I'll say the names one more time. We got John M, Phil, Kris, John T, Dan, Jack, Andrew, and Eric. Thank you all so much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
Yeah, doing all that yard work out in the heat is catching up with me.
Yeah,
I'm very thirsty.
Yeah.
In the news, before we go on, the washing machine in this apartment is not working, and I put in the insurance maintenance request. The chances of them coming to the door during this podcast is about 100%.
Yep, sounds
so
right.
If that
Why
happens,
not?
I will.
Today is that week.
It is that week. I will. I think there's a mute button on this thing. I don't know. I'll try to find it, and then I'll whatever. I'll go run. If not, you'll just have to hear it in the background.
Yes.
In the news, with CEDIA happening this week, home theater companies that are focused on the custom installer market made some announcements early to get the jump on things.
So just before we go to that first one, I wanted to say, because people are going to wonder why we didn't talk about it, because it just dropped today as we're recording this. There's going to be a new Dolby Vision 2. So we'll get into the details of that next week, because I didn't have time to write it all up. I'll just say, at very first blush, I think it's kind of dumb, but we'll get into it next week, and we'll see if I still think that.
It's kind of dumb. They just put the 2 at the end of something and made a couple of small changes that are going to break a bunch of TVs for no stupid reason. Yes. All right. Trinnov announced their new AltitudeCI Pre-Pro, because apparently they took Denon's naming convention from like 10 years ago.
Well, they had an Altitude 16, they had an Altitude 32. This is now the AltitudeCI.
Custom installer.
That's right.
Pre-Pro. At just 2 rack units high, it's the most compact Altitude Pre-Pro ever, and that is made possible by the switch to using audio over IP connections, which is basically an Ethernet port, although it still provides 8 analog XLR connections on the back. The AltitudeCI's center channel count is modular and upgradable in 2-channel increments. So for the anticipated starting price of €10,000, which with tariffs is like 300,000 American, I think.
Yeah, it's expected to be between 10 and 12,000 US dollars MSRP, but we'll see what that ends up being. Yep.
You get 8 channels, which would typically be used for 7.1 or 5.1.2 configuration. That, of course, can be handled directly by the 8 analog XLR outputs if you want. And then for what is expected to be a price of €1,000 or $10,000 American, you can add 2 more channels of processing at a time, up to a maximum of 32 channels total. All channels can be output via Ethernet using the Dante protocol. Okay, the AltitudeCI has 3 Ethernet ports. The Trinnov Amplitude 16 Class D amplifier then gets an Ethernet audio over IP input board that can be loaded into its expansion slot. And since the AltitudeCI supports 4 HMI inputs and native AES67 support for DCI servers, you now have a completely digital signal chain right up until the moment the audio signal gets amplified. Yay. The Trinnov optimizer with remapping is on board, of course, as is Trinnov waveforming. It's actually suggests that you use the 8 XLR connections exclusively for subwoofers while using the Ethernet outputs for all your speakers, which actually, in the first thing that has been said in this entire thing, makes sense to me.
Yep.
I like that. That actually makes sense. Everything else is just like, I'm just like, this is over-explaining that this thing is modular, and you can add it by Ethernet, and people are going to be like, but where do I put the big cable? Where do I put the fancy cable? It's an Ethernet cable. Just stop. They've already said they're working on a 64-channel version that's expected to release sometime in 2026, just in case 32 channels isn't enough for you. And they haven't, and it won't be for CI, for custom installers. And they have an all-new user interface that includes a guided calibration workflow. So even though they are strongly targeted at the custom installer market, they realize some of their users want to do it themselves, and they've made efforts to create a more user-friendly system for those type of clients. I love this. I'm going to be honest with you. This is. I love this.
I love everything about it except the price.
The price, yes, except for the price. Like when this is what I want. I want a bunch of people to buy it, and then when the 64 version comes out, I want them to sell it for cheap.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sell us the 32 channel version because so I mean, it's interesting that like in the home version of Dolby Atmos, which is the home audio format that is capable of using the most discrete speakers, the maximum you can have there is it 32? I think it is 32 speakers plus the 0.1 dedicated low frequency effects channel. I think that's as high as the home version of Atmos goes, and nothing at home goes further. So, they specifically mention that it has that, AES 67 protocol, which can connect to like full blown movie theater DCI servers, which of course some of the types of clients who are going after this have access to. So it's like, that's how you can get the 64 channel version of Atmos, which does exist, but only in the full-blown movie theater DCI standard. The home version of Atmos doesn't go to a channel count that high. So it does make sense they're releasing the 32 channel version of the AltitudeCI first.
Yeah. Integra says they've collaborated directly with custom installers to create their new professional amplifier series, which includes 4 Class D models that all come with a 5-year warranty. While end users might never look at it, the focus was on the development of Integra's new Control SW setup software and their online GUI. Zones individual or bridge outputs 4 ohm, 8 ohm, 70 volt, and or 100-volt outputs, EQ, limiters, compressors, and backup settings can all be quickly and easily configured using the new interface. Of course, this is all for custom installers, and you can do it.
It sure is.
And Integra made sure these amps work with every integration system out there. QSys, which I don't know what that is, Control 4, RTI, Crestron, Symmetric, AMX, and URC, or Universal Remote Control.
That's right, Universal Remote Control.
That stands for. Furthermore, thanks to brand integration, if you opt for Klipsch speakers throughout your house, and new Integra professional amplifiers all come with presets for all the current Klipsch speaker models to automatically optimize DSP settings, i.e., those speakers are not linear. They're going to fix that out of the box.
It's, automatically setting the crossover frequency if you need any equalization or anything like that. It's just like, yep, we're all part of the same brand, so we'll incentivize you to buy Klipsch speakers if you're buying these new Integra custom installer amps.
There's also a $370 wall-mounted zone controller that can directly interface with the new amps. So the 4 new amplifier models are 4125 DSP for $1,900, which is a 1 rack unit high, half rack width, 4x125 for $125. That's why I said it that way. Mm-hmm. Watts into either 4 or 8 ohms. 8125 DSP for $3,700, 1 rack unit high, full rack width, which I think you can figure that out.
And then the 125, it's 8x125 into 4 or 8 ohms. So there's no doubling down of power into the 4 ohm spec for this thing. It's 125 watts regardless of the impedance you're attaching.
So the 4500 DSP just for $3,600, which is 2 rack units high, half rack width, 250 watts into 8 ohms, 4x500 watts into 4 ohms, which is where that number comes from. Yeah. And then 2x1000 watts bridged.
Yeah.
So that seems like a lot. The 8500 DSP for $6,000, which is 2 rack units, full width this time, front air intake with rear exhaust. So that one's going to make some noise.
A little bit.
I think you can figure that one out as well.
Needs some cooling.
It's 8 channels instead of 4.
That's right. All
models offer RCA and balanced Phoenix inputs with Phoenix speaker outputs plus a network port and 3-prong IEC power input. So for Phoenix, those are weird looking green ones.
Yeah, where you do all of the physical cable attachments to a little green block on the outside, and then you just plug the little green block into the back of the amplifier. That's how that works. Yeah.
Kaleidescape has launched their new lowercase kAI.
Yep.
An AI-powered discovery feature that is available if you use the web version of their Kaleidescape movie store. Using generative AI, you can search using natural language prompts and then follow up with questions to find the content you're looking for and narrow down your choices. AVRant listener Henry is keen to know what we think of it. I think if it's anything like the spell check, it can suck it because it's going to be terrible. I have not yet experienced and I have not played around with ChatGPT. I've not played around with any of these LLMs when it comes to just even experimenting with them. The best I've done, or the most I've done, is with some of the, I think Bing or Gemini or one of those.
I'm sure Gemini.
where they generate pictures for you that are clearly AI pictures. So it's like, no,
okay.
You know what I mean? And I've used that on AV gadgets to make just because it gets infuriating trying to find unique pictures for everything and then having to modify them myself and everything else. And because I'm not very good at it. But then I always make sure, I like to make sure that my pictures are clearly AI. Like I don't want anybody to go, oh, I wonder where did you get this picture from? It's AI, dude. I mean, the guy has 6 fingers. What do you want me to tell you? You know, that is not English on that screen. I don't know how else to say it. It's clearly another picture. But I don't know. I mean, I would love because what we all want is the Star Trek computer, right? Sure. That's what we're looking for is the Star Trek computer. You talk to the computer says, you know, you ask it the question, it gives you an answer.
Yeah, the natural language interface, like that,
Yes.
I see a ton of value in. I don't have any beefs at all with companies that are trying to further develop natural language interfaces. That makes sense to me. Yeah, for sure. Which, you know, I mean, that's largely what Kaleidescape is trying to do here. Like, they give the example of, you know, you can't remember the title of the movie, but you vaguely remember what it was kind of about. So you're like, hey, Kaleidescape, what was that movie where the, you know, guy gets on a horse and goes back in time or something, like, you know, like just try and figure out what the heck I'm talking about. And then if it comes up with like multiple, you know, potential answers, you're like, well, which one was the one that, you know, came out before 1990 or what, you know, like do follow-up questions or that type of thing. I don't have any problem with that if it works.
Yeah.
You know, like one of the problems with anything that's based on large language models, it's not like Kaleidescape wrote their own. Okay, I don't know which one is behind this. It's probably ChatGPT, but it, you know, it could be Gemini, it could be something else, it could be Grok for all we know. Who knows what is behind this thing? They didn't say which system they're using, but they didn't make their own. Which means that, you know, all of these things are only trained on the past. So I don't know how great it's going to be at figuring out a movie that, you know, just came out.
Yeah.
You know, that model hasn't been updated to have that knowledge just yet. And then, you know, on the ones that already exist, you know, if you just go to any of these large language models right now and say, hey, I'm not sure what to watch, but here's like a movie or two that I know I enjoyed. Can you think of anything else that's, you know, kind of like those? That's what I'm in the mood for. And they do a half decent job of, you know, giving you a few suggestions. But the problem is they never come up with the unexpected stuff because all they're doing is scraping well-known lists that were already put together. Here are the top 10 whatever type of movies. If you liked this movie, here are 10 other movies that you'll probably enjoy. That's all the LLM is scraping and regurgitating back to you. So you never get the type of, you know, farther afield or, hey, I never realized or thought of how this movie from whenever is actually similar in like theme or in tone, not in plot, but, you know, in some way. And it's like, oh yeah, if I like this movie, it actually would be good to watch this one. It's not going to be on one of those very common top 10 lists that the LLM scraped. It's going to be a human being with a vast knowledge of prior movies who's going to come up with that connection, but that hasn't been written down in text somewhere for the AI to scrape, and it's never going to come up with that suggestion for you. So it's like, you know, this, I don't expect this thing to be any better than exactly the type that you get right now, which is like, it's the same 5 suggestions from the same scraped sources, and it's not going to be completely up to date until it gets trained on something new. So that's what I'm expecting this will be. What else could it be? Kaleidescape didn't write their own thing, so, you know, there it is. Yeah,
and if you think about Pandora, right? So Pandora was initially they call it the Music Genome Project.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And what they had done is they took real people. They had real people that paid them to go through and to categorize songs in a bunch of different ways. Yeah. Like the types of beats they had, types of vocals, the influences, all these other things. I don't know exactly what they all are. And then when you said you liked a song, then they will look at those categories and try to find other songs that were like that. And that does, to an extent, work because you end up taking, as songs are coming out, they're being recategorized or being categorized by people. But how well are they categorized? That is what So now take the same thing, but instead of having people do it, have a computer look at people who have done similar things in the past and then try to come up with something. They're never going to come up with anything new.
Exactly.
Right? So, when a new genre of music comes out, if there's not somebody to go, this is different than anything we've had before, so we need to create a new category, and we need to start, adding that category to everything else retrospectively and go back through it. And even with Pandora, which is done by human beings, or at least it was initially, it probably isn't anymore. I still end up with the same songs on multiple lists, even though the seeds are completely different. These specific songs will show up over and over. I'm like, what are you doing on this list, man? This is a 90. The title of it is 90s music.
Right.
This song just came out. Why is it here? Yes, I know Kendrick Lamar is very popular right now, but Kendrick Lamar should not be on this 90s playlist. Like, you should not be playing this to me.
So, like, as far as this kAI goes, I don't know what the situation is, because my fear is that I don't want this to replace the regular deterministic search.
Yes.
If they're both there, I don't have a problem with it being there and making use of it, because sometimes it is that thing where it's like, oh yeah, I can't remember what the name of the movie is or when it came out, or, like I just have a vague thing. And if it's helpful even once or twice, then hey, great. Glad it was there. But I definitely don't want it replacing the regular search, because if I do know the movie's title, I don't want to put that into search and then have a large language model riff on it and try and give me the thing it thinks I'm trying to get. Like, no, just look up the title. I knew the title. Look it up and show me the listing for that movie. Don't make something up at that point. So that's my fear, is that it starts replacing the regular search.
Yeah, we'll see. This AI thing cannot die fast enough as far as I'm concerned. Well, this is exciting to watch.
Okay.
There is the repaving part of my apartment complex, and if you left your car in the wrong spot, they tow it for you, whether you like it or not.
I see.
They repark it for you someplace else, and then they charge you if they can figure out whose car it was. Comments. Nathan and Dazz both heard John's question last week, where he was asking about the noise level in his home gym and which noise canceling earphones he should consider. Nathan wanted to mention that Power Beats Pro 2 that Rob suggested frequently go on sale for $200 or less. So if the $250 price tag is a deterrent, just wait a while, because they'll probably drop back down again before too long. And Daz wondered if John's main issue with the Apple AirPods Pro 2 is that he already owns, namely, they fall out of the ears when he's running, could be solved by just replacing the ear tips. Daz has also found that the silicone ear tips that come with the AirPods to be unacceptable, but he replaced them with the Comply memory foam ear tips, and those form a much better seal and stay put, at least in his experience. A side bonus is that the more secure fit also improves the noise cancellation even more, but they do cost $30 for a 3-pack, and sweat does seem to break down the foam over time, so they need to be replaced on a fairly constant basis. Both agree that price-wise, my suggestion to try the Soundcore Sport X20s makes sense, but if for some reason those do not satisfy, then these alternative suggestions might come in handy. So there you go.
Yeah, I got no beef with that. Those sound like helpful suggestions for sure. And just keeping an eye on prices is always a good thing. But yeah, they do frequently go on sale, those Beats. They didn't used to in the past when it was Beats by Dre, but now that Apple owns them and they've kind of lost their luster for that brand name, they got to put them on sale to get them out of the warehouse sometimes. So yeah, no problem with that.
You got to get rappers to start wearing them again.
That's right.
Jay on YouTube says that there's a more precise way to undo Audyssey's subwoofer EQ when connecting to a tactile transducer, particularly when you're going to be using a mini DSP 2x4 HD anyway. The mini DSP 2x4 HD has a USB output, and if you plug that into a Mac or PC, Room EQ Wizard can recognize the 4 mini DSP output channels as 4 separate audio sources. So select the output you're using to feed your tactile transducers as the audio input into Room EQ Wizard. Now connect your computer's HDMI output to your AV receiver and set that as a Room EQ Wizard's audio output. This, what?
So
anyways, I'm going to keep reading this until it makes sense.
The Room EQ Wizard, as far as, what is Room EQ Wizard getting its sound from and where is it sending its sound out of? So it's sending the sound out of your computer's HDMI port to your AV receiver, and it's getting the sound in from the mini DSP's USB connection. That's the signal connection path.
All right. This allows you to do a loop-back measurement of a bass sweep. Room EQ Wizard generates a bass sweep that goes out of your computer's HDMI port through your AV receiver, with Audyssey on, of course, out of your AV receiver subwoofer pre-out and into the mini DSP. Room EQ Wizard can then measure exactly what signal is coming out of the mini DSP via that USB connection so that you can see in Room EQ Wizard precisely what Audyssey has done to the bass sweep coming out of your AV receiver subwoofer out port. You can then use Room EQ Wizard's EQ tool to create a perfect inverse filter to bring the response back to perfectly flat, no eyeballing or guesswork at all. I did not know that existed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay, on YouTube for sharing that with us, but that makes perfect sense.
It absolutely makes it, because you got Room EQ Wizard is the thing generating the sweep. So it knows. It knows what that sweep was supposed to be, which is, it's just all the frequencies at exactly the same volume level. It's a flat line, but it knows what it was sending out. Then it gets the signal back in, but it has now gone out through the AV receiver, through Audyssey's processing, and back into the mini DSP. And then the mini DSP is sending that signal back in. So yeah, it's like a constant loop around. It's like, hey, I know what I sent out. Here's what I got back in. So then what EQ filter do I need to create to make the thing I got back in equal to the thing I sent back out in the first place? And so, yeah, Room EQ Wizard can calculate all of that for you. No guesswork on your part, just a completely perfect inverse filter. And that's great. Fantastic. Thank you, Jay, for that correction.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's get to some questions here. Jason says he's followed some of our advice we've shared on our podcast over the years, and he's quite happy with the results he has achieved so far, but he'd like to improve his bass response a bit more. He's got a dedicated enclosed room that's 12.5 feet wide by 18 feet long, but only 6 feet 7 inches high, which is, of course, a low ceiling. He's running a 7.2.2 configuration using Denon's X4500H receiver to power Paradigm Monitor Series 7 speakers all around, plus a pair of SVS Prime Elevation front heights, the least impressive of all the height speakers, to be honest with you.
But there they are. He's got it.
But there they are.
Yes.
All up there being speakers. And yeah, every once in a while you look at them and go, oh, that's right, I put those up there.
Yep.
His subs are a pair of Velodyne DSP-12s that claim 25 hertz extension. They're in the middle of his front wall and the back of his, I guess one is in the middle of his front wall and another one's in the middle of his back wall. He wound up connecting them with a Y splitter to just the sub 1 output of his Denon. He has made lots of acoustic panels himself. They're all 3 inches thick with with a half to 1 inch air gap behind them. He used a trick of getting movie poster artwork with all the text removed so that he could have cool looking prints on the panel fabric without running into copyright issues from the fabric printer. His most recent changes were building some triangular corner bass traps that are only half the room's height and they stand on the floor. He also replaced his DIY equipment rack in a recessed corner space at the back of the room with a Sanus equipment stand. This is a very nice home theater.
Yes, I knew you would like those photos on the panels because it is using that trick. You take off the text and that helps you get around the copyright thing. But yeah, we can see in the corners he has mounted. They're just standing on the floor, so they're not mounted by any hardware. But he made his own triangular bass traps.
Yeah.
Some of those also have images printed on them. The ones at the back of the room have images printed on them too. So yeah, it's a very, very like decorated space in here, but it's all movie themed. It all looks right. And then, he's got his equipment rack sort of hidden behind a panel that he can flip out of the way like a door. And he's cleaned it up in there with a Sanus rack now instead of the DIY one that he had before.
It looks nice.
Like it a lot. Yes.
The shadows coming off of his front speakers made me think they were facing each other, but they are not.
Okay.
So that's where. So he's taking measurements and he's hoping we can help him To improve the bass even further, the addition of the corner traps seems to help in the 100 to 200 hertz a little bit, but nothing really below that. Using a single subwoofer distance that Audyssey calculated on its own, he got an audible dip at 75 hertz, and then there's another dip up higher in the 150 region. Using either the independent dual subwoofer setting or manually changing the subwoofer distances based on tape measure readings did not produce a net positive result, because that's not how those work. Although they did change the bass measurement in noticeable ways, so it does seem as though manipulating the subwoofer distance setting can have a real effect in his case. Never have I ever said that you wouldn't have that changing the distance setting wouldn't have an effect. I said it would, and that you shouldn't do it because it's just generally going to be bad.
Well, it's moving around. He hasn't been able to create a flat line, but he can move around where the dips and the peaks happen based on that phase relationship. So
what is this red line?
That was one of the worst ones. I don't know exactly what happened there. That isn't what he's been using by default, but
so I guess the green line is what he normally uses.
The green line is what he's been using by default. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he does not plan to reposition the subs in any way, and he's done as far as adding any more acoustic treatments to his room. Does that mean he's out of luck when it comes to the bass dips he's measured, or could there actually be a way to get a flatter response? Well, the first thing I would do, first of all, he's got tower speakers, right?
That's right.
Right. The first thing I would do is change your crossover to lower than 80. Because right now you have a dip at like 78.
Yeah, I mean, potentially setting the crossover higher could also,
either way.
And this is a free and relatively easy thing to do in trial. Although if you always want to confirm it via measurements, obviously there's time involved in that. But if you're doing it just by ear and listening to sweeps playing on repeat, just adjusting what the crossover frequency is for those front speakers can have relationship. Because mostly what we're seeing, the biggest problem, if you even want to call it that, because honestly this response is
pretty good,
dramatically problematic.
It's just that one dip.
He was showing how when he did add those corner bass traps, what before was, let's see, we're going from just above 100 dB to just below 90, right? So that's like a plus minus 6 or 7 is what was going on there above 100 hertz. And then once he added the corner bass traps, honestly, that shrank down to like plus or minus 5.
Right.
So, and that visual dip that we're seeing, just below 80 hertz, like that's still within a plus or minus 5 dB type of range overall. If you just, drew the average line through that and then changing the, distance settings, whether that's different distances for both subs or just changing the single distance setting, but that is altering the phase relationship in relation to your front, left, and right speakers, which are tower speakers and are playing down to below 80 hertz. Even with that 80 hertz crossover, it's like, that didn't improve things. It made the dip even larger at a slightly higher frequency, or it made pretty much a full-on null at one point. You wound up with the speakers and the subwoofers, or perhaps just the two subwoofers together. I'm not sure which scenario that was, but pretty much a full-on null at like 85 hertz at one point. So that didn't improve things. Honestly, if you were listening to this with your ears, I question how audible it really is, whether that's, truly a large enough dip at like 75 hertz to genuinely be audible and troublesome to you, because it's not, it looks much worse on the graph where you can see it very clearly.
See this big valley.
Sure,
it looks massive.
Oh my gosh, there's a V
plus
notch.
Or minus 5 dB.
That's right.
In one little location. It's only a handful of frequencies.
And
really.
at a pretty
hertz.
low frequency. We sometimes don't estimate how low 80 hertz really is. That's a very low note. So I have a little question of how truly problematic this is. But yes, there are things you can do to potentially further improve that. And as you've seen, you can make it worse too. So, you don't necessarily want to drive yourself crazy doing this. But it's the same procedure as before, which is, first of all, do the subwoofers only by themselves, only subwoofers, no speakers involved at this point. And here, I mean, yes, if you want to confirm with measurements, that's totally fine, but I would start by doing it by ear, which is, if you have fully variable phase, and this is part of the issue, is that on the subwoofers that he owns right now, he doesn't have that. So he's relying on what the AV receiver can do to it, which all of it, if you're not going to change the subwoofers and you're not going to add a mini DSP 2x4 to this thing, I'm like, I would kind of just leave it alone as far as the two subwoofers on their own go. But if you do change and you have fully variable phase, that's where subwoofers by themselves, you manipulate the fully variable phase on the subwoofer that is physically closest to your seat. And do that by ear, listening in like 3 different listening positions across a 3-seater couch to try and get that most uniform bass. Uniform is what we're going for. Still might have an audible dip or an audible hump in it, but it's the same audible dip or hump across all 3 of your seats, and you get that uniformity. That's the subwoofers by themselves. Once we are quite confident that the subwoofers by themselves have uniform response, that's where you can go back and manipulate the crossover frequency with your front speakers so that, again, by ear at first and then confirming with measurements, you end up with that smoother transition in that crossover region. And I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a bunch of trial and error. It's a bunch of time. In the end, you might not end up being able to make it any better than plus minus 5 dB that you've already achieved, and it'll all seem like a giant waste of time. But that is the procedure by which this could be done.
Yeah, I wonder how much he's actually audibly noticing
exactly. This is one of the ones where having measured can lead you a little bit astray because you're like, hey, I never noticed it listening to movies as being a problem, but I can see it now, so it bugs me and I want to fix it.
Yeah. So his current pair of subs clearly roll off below 30 hertz. With upgrading to a pair of SVS PB1000 Pro or PB2000 Pro genuinely be noticeable. I don't think you're noticing this to begin with, so they won't necessarily fix this particular problem that you're having, but let's
well,
keep
I mean,
going.
like, objectively speaking, yes, you can have flatter response right down to 20 hertz. Like, that is just a fact of life.
What are these Velodynes?
These are some Velodynes, yeah, but they're not the biggest Velodynes by any means.
No.
And their claim was 25 hertz extension. That was probably in a corner in a real room, and honestly,
but the problems he's noticing are not in the. So there's 2 things that are happening. That 2 questions that are being asked.
That's right. This is a different question.
The first is, will this change the problems that you're having? The answer is, if your Velodynes are linear and we know the SVSs are linear at these frequencies, if you put them in the exact same spots as they were before, chances are you're going to have the same problem.
But the SVSs do for sure have the fully variable phase. And the subs he has right now don't. So that gives him something new to adjust and agonize over and take a whole bunch of new measurements for. And if that's your pride and joy.
Don't forget, you will now have 10 more hertz.
That's right. There could be a new problem down lower.
And you don't know. You're assuming that line's going to continue to stay flat all the way through. And the reality is that it very well might not. So he says he's pretty sure he'll be able to measure a difference, but would an average person truly notice? And being in Canada, are there subwoofer brands or models you should consider that would honestly perform better than his current Velodynes? The 12 DSPs, if I remember correctly, and it's been quite a few years, I think were pretty well regarded when they get. Those are the digital drive ones, right?
As far as his Velodynes go, which one did he have?
I'm looking up here.
We got to scroll back up here, but DSP 12s. DSP 12s.
I don't remember these specifically. The DD12.
These aren't the DD. No.
Were pretty well regarded.
Oh, yeah.
But the rest, and many Velodynes were well regarded, but at the end of their life, before they started turning into a headphone company and then dying, their subwoofers, like especially their more entry-level ones, were not as linear. So if we're assuming that that these are not as linear as the SVSs, which that you can only be less linear, I think, than the SVS subs. Could it be that just changing the subs, that just putting the subs in here, running Audyssey, that this little dip here is solely because of the frequency response of the Velodynes?
I mean, given where that dip is, that's pretty unlikely. It's
I think so too.
Yeah.
If it were lower, if it were towards the bottom of its response, I would be more inclined to say that it's the performance of the Velodynes that is either causing or making the problem worse.
But like I say, the SVSs do have the fully variable phase, so that dip that he's seen, that he's concerned about around 80 hertz, is something that could potentially be fixed with the SVSs. And then they're beginning their roll off, these Velodyne subs, at 40 hertz. Honestly, is where they're just beginning to, which is not surprising given the physical size of them. And so, could you maintain a considerably flatter line right down to 20 hertz? Just objective fact. Could you do that? Yes, absolutely. In this room size, I mean, the PB1000s would be kind of close to their limits. PB2000s would have no problem. You got headroom to spare if you went PB2000s. And then, so would a normal person actually notice? Well, with the right content, like we've talked about, it's like you're going to have trouble hearing it, right? Below 30 hertz, you're going to have trouble hearing it. You can hear below 30 hertz, but you're going to have, that's not so much of it. But, if you're noticing like the jelly in your eyes vibrating type of effect, it's like these Velodynes are not going to give you that. PB2000s could easily give you that. PB1000s would be sort of at their limits, but can give you most of that the PB2000s could. So it's like, is it possible to notice? Yes. Is it going to be all the time? Definitely not, because it's going to depend on the content you're watching. Actually having content below 30 hertz is really where this is going to make a difference. So it's like, it's detectable, it's genuine, it would be measurable, it would be noticeable if you're playing the right content. If all of that adds up to, I think it's worth it, then it's like there is an objective difference to be had there. In Canada, prices now have gotten a lot closer, but you can get Tone Winner, particularly from Summit Hi-Fi. Summit Hi-Fi is a Canadian online retailer. They sell SVS and Tone Winners, so you can compare them directly. The Tone Winners are still a little bit less expensive, and they do have fully variable phase, and they are very comparable, head-to-head in terms of driver and amplifier size if you match them up. So if you're just looking to save a little bit of money over SVS, Tone Winner is a reasonable option from Summit Hi-Fi in Canada.
I scrolled too far.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Yes. Should he consider a speaker upgrade? Is he already at the point of diminishing returns? How much would he need to spend to really notice an improvement? So he's got Paradigm Monitor 7s, is that what he said?
Yeah, I think that's what he said, yeah. I mean, you are at the point of diminishing returns.
For sure.
Yeah.
Could you notice a difference? Yeah, probably. I mean, maybe.
You could definitely get speakers that sound different. You could definitely get different.
Difference not hard to achieve.
Difference not hard.
Paradigm is going for a fairly flat frequency response. That's pretty typical of the entire Canadian NRC speaker design. I say NRC as if the NRC had anything to do with it, but the fact that they're all measured in the same place, that they end up coming out sounding kind of similar. Could you buy a speaker that plays lower, or that plays louder, or plays higher? That's a little bit more flat, a little bit more even at different volumes.
Yes to all of those.
Yes.
They do exist.
They exist.
Yeah.
How much money would you have to spend? Probably a bunch.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, probably a sack full of money.
Yeah.
And if you have to ask how much is in that sack, well, it's probably not the purchase you want to make. You've done a lot of the work here. These speakers should be able to sound great in this room, and they probably do. Let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet this room sounds really good.
If you've got some money,
we're looking at graphs and getting neurotic about it.
Yeah, if you've got some money, I would definitely do your subwoofer upgrade idea before your speaker upgrade, without question. Like I can point to an objective and noticeable improvement that you could do with subwoofers. With the speakers, it's like, you can get speakers that are, even objectively speaking, a little bit better than the Paradigm Monitor 7, but you are definitely at diminishing returns. You're at where spending 4 times as much gets you a little bit of improvement. Yeah. And that to me is the point of diminishing returns. It's like from speakers that cost
definition of diminishing returns. It's not the point of
from speakers that cost significantly less, like half as much as your Monitor 7s, to your Monitor 7s. Big noticeable upgrade, no question. That is much better. And then above your Monitor 7s, it's like you spend 4 times as much and get a little bit better. Yeah.
All right, Jonathan enjoyed an article posted by Headphonisty.
Yeah, Headphonisty, I would say.
Titled 20 discontinued. Why is Headphonesty talking about speakers? Anyways, 20 discontinued speakers, thousands of audiophiles say they missed the most, i.e. we scraped Reddit for a post.
Well, actually, no, they scraped their own comment section, and that is why they can declare that it is thousands of audiophiles, because literally every person who comments on their forum or on their comment section is automatically an audiophile, you see.
I see.
Yeah. Brent Butterworth on his podcast, he went through a different. They put out a bunch of these lists because they're doing some SEO. He commented on this too. If you want to hear his take on this, but not this exact article. It was a different article that he commented on.
Anyways, do we agree with the selections? Are there any missing that we would add? I absolutely don't agree with anything they said on this article.
I mean, there's one that I will say, yeah, I missed those. Do you want to go through these here? I forgot.
Are we going to go through them all? How many are there?
Why don't you just say it real quick? Because I took the picture, so we can at least show the ones that they're talking of. So if you want to read the names real quick, I'll just go through them.
I gotta go. I've never looked at this article.
I see.
I just absolutely
you just assumed. You're not wrong. Your assumption was correct, Tom. I'm quite certain you're not going to say that you agree with this list.
So there's the Infinity IRS-V, which is a ludicrously large speaker.
Gigantic line array designed, a stack of ribbons.
With two subwoofer line arrays behind them.
That's right, yeah.
Which is also dumb. The Advent, original Advent.
Yeah, why? Why is that?
Why would you miss this?
That is a pure nostalgia. Some dude on the comment section was like, I had these speakers and I miss them. That's all that amounted to.
Tell you what, every vote was worth 7.47%.
Yes,
on this thing. Acoustic Research AR3s, which again, that's just my dad.
You'll notice that almost all of these are gigantic old box speakers with tons of edge diffraction.
Acoustic Research AR4X, Mirage M1 SI series.
I mean, I kind of miss Mirage existing. I was never a big fan of Mirage, but I kind of missed them existing altogether.
Radio Shack Minimus.
Why? This was literally somebody's first speakers, and they're like, I remember I had fond memories of my first ever speakers. Yeah.
Castle Howard, never heard of these.
Never heard
3.83%. It's got an upward firing driver, so early Atmos.
There you go. Yeah.
Early Atmos. Tweeter underneath a woofer, because screw you.
And
that's
offset.
why.
Many of these with the offset tweeter. You can tell exactly what decade all of these came from.
Oh my god, the Lin Isobaric, which.
Sure. You know, it's the push-pull woofers down there, the opening at the bottom for the push-pull woofers, sure.
So bad. Carver Amazing, because they're amazing. Yeah. They're clearly
another
amazing.
line array, yeah.
Yeah. That looks like an electrostatic speaker. Am I wrong?
That's a big old line of ribbons, so.
Yeah. The KEF 104.2 Rock.
Sure. You can get really good KEF speakers today. I don't know why you'd miss these ones in particular.
These are not the ones I would. The Dahlquest DQ10s, which again looks like an electric.
Yeah, these look like dipoles or something for sure.
I don't know what the heck those things are.
I don't know what those are.
I don't know how you put them in your room.
Yeah.
It's clearly not somebody's actual. Oh, look at this piece of crap. The JBL L300s. What is that? What are those fins? What is that fins for? Is it cool? Is it?
I don't know.
What is it cooling? What is this?
I don't know what's going on there. I don't remember these.
What must be the crossover between the tweeter and the woofer in this thing? Look at the size of that woofer. It is the size of a platter that you serve a turkey on.
I mean, if you care about dispersion, the crossover should be 500 hertz on these, but I bet you it's 3,000.
I bet you it's not 500. Where's the tweeter? It's a laser beam.
Maybe that's what these fins are for. It's to scatter the sound a little bit as it makes its way down.
What's happening there? The LS3/5A.
Sure, those were nice.
Yeah, it's if that pinhead guy from Hellraiser made a speaker. That's it. This is the speaker. That's what it looks like.
Now, next ones are ones I do genuinely miss.
All right.
Finally.
The Paradigm Signature. This is a good-looking speaker.
It's not that you can't get a similar speaker from Paradigm these days. It's that the Signatures were such a value because they were expensive, but they were very much achievable type of price points.
1.46% of the votes. Yeah. Some poor dude.
It's like those ones I actually miss. I wish the Signatures, like, It's not that I wish they were still around. It's that I wish they were still around at this price point. That's what I wish, at their original price point.
JBL L65s. Again, that's weird slot tweeter, but now it's offset and right next to a mid-range, which is right. Both of them right above. This whole era of speakers where they're like, we don't understand how sound works. Let's just slap some drivers into the front of the box.
This is what other people did, so we can't be bucking the trend here. All those tweeters can't be in the middle.
I remember these ESS AMTs.
Sure,
I didn't realize that this was that people were missing this. You can still get this. It's called a Wilson.
Right.
So that's basically the same thing.
Speaking of,
Wilson Audio Watt / Puppy.
And I mean, I guess they're talking about the originals because they're still selling Watt puppies.
I'm going to say they still sell the Watt puppies.
Yeah.
That's why when your speaker costs $750,000, you make 3 and then you wait to sell them. ProAC?
Yeah, ProAC. Yeah.
Response 4, which is, hey, you could still get almost something exactly like this from RBH. RBH has a design that's similar to this.
They do?
But with more tweeters. Polk Monitor 10s.
Surprising.
Shut up.
I have no idea why that would make this list out of all. I mean, let alone all the speakers, all the Polk speakers. Why these ones?
Some of these daddy had them in his garage.
Yep, that's exactly what all of these look like.
The Yamaha NS1000s. This is
a bad list.
This is a terrible list.
But I do miss the Paradigm signatures, and I wish that Mirage still existed. So that's as far as I get on those. Any missing that I would add? There is a speaker that I genuinely miss. It's actually a package of speakers. It's that Athena Micra 6 package. Man, that was a good little 5.1 satellite speaker package back when Athena speakers was still a brand that was around. I miss the Athena Micro 6 because, man, they were easy to recommend. And then also another just brand that I miss having existed entirely, Energy speakers. I wish they were still around.
Yeah, they got bought and then basically destroyed. When I miss EMP Tech. I miss being able to point everybody to EMP Tech.
But we got RBH Impression now at a much higher price.
Yeah. That's basically why
RSL has kind of taken over where EMP Tech used to be, except no tower option. If you wanted towers, EMP Tech was a great deal.
Yeah. Steve figures he's about ready for an AV receiver upgrade. He recently replaced his 1080p projector with a 98-inch TCL QM8. We never guessed this. It's a lot brighter.
Yeah. Shocking.
It also does every flavor HDR, and his Denon X4000 cannot handle that. He still likes Denon as a receiver brand, and he bought his X4000 from Accessories for Less, so he's happy to buy from them again. He's hoping to find something in the $500 range, but up to $1,000 acceptable. $3,800, right? But it's just a 5.2 setup. He's not against potentially adding more speakers one day, but no plans to do so either, so a large channel count is not necessary. Unfortunately, you're probably going to end up there anyways. Here's the thing.
If you said Denon X3800, that's not under the $1,000 price point, even from Accessories for Less. So that's and you don't need 9 amplifiers and 11 channel processing built in when you're not planning to upgrade from 5.2. I know that's where XT32, Audyssey Multi-Q XT32, the 4 subwoofer pre-outs with the tactile transducer output. It's that 3800, but that is substantially over $1,000.
So if that's too expensive for you, which is fine, I totally understand. Then I'm probably going to point you towards Onkyo is going to be the next one, or a less expensive. There's nothing wrong with XT. I say that now. There's nothing wrong with Audyssey XT or whatever the one is below.
But the X4000 that he's upgrading from, it did have XT32.
I know. So that's why I was like, that's the next logical one to go for. But what you got, Rob?
The thing is, if you're looking for just what comes closest to $500 and does what I need and basically nothing else, going with a Denon X1800H. It is not a bad choice here. From Accessories for Less, their price is $600 right now, so a little over $500, but well under $1,000. But yes, it is Multi-Q XT. It is 7 speakers maximum. You could still have it light up with Atmos because it can do the Dolby Atmos height virtualization, but it will only virtualize to upward speakers because it can only process 7 channels maximum. It can't virtualize 4 overhead speakers while still having your regular 5.2 setup. But that's the one that does everything you need and virtually nothing else. You could, for $100 more, go up to the X2800H. The only reason to do that is maybe you want a little bit more amplifier built in, power built in. It is an actual genuine difference between the 1800 and the 2800. So if your room's a little bit larger, you're sitting a little bit farther away. An argument can be made for that for just $100 more. But I'm in agreement with Tom. I'm probably going to point you to an Onkyo as well, for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're going with either of the models we're going to mention, you get Dirac. So this is going to be a new thing for you because Dirac is very much as capable as XT32 and more capable in some ways when it comes to you manually changing your target curve if you want to. It's got even more capability than XT32 does from Audyssey with Dirac built in. But in addition to this, the first one I'm going to suggest is the TX NR7100 that we've mentioned multiple times. Accessories for Less right now is selling it at $750. That's not the lowest price it's ever been, but prices have crept up for, reasons we might be able to surmise going on in our political landscape. But yeah, definitely still under $1,000. And so with the NR7100, it does not have any speaker pre-outs, but then neither the Denon X1800 or 2800 had pre-outs either. So you're relying on the built-in amplification here. It does have 9 amplifiers built in, and it stops at processing 9. But one of the nice things there is, even if you don't buy any more speakers, you still use 5 speakers. Again, that Dolby Atmos height virtualization, it will virtualize, in the case of the NR7100 from Onkyo, 4 overhead speakers because it can process 9 channels. So I think that's a really good value proposition. You get the better room correction Dirac over Audyssey Multi-Q XT. And you get the 9-channel processing, which lets you virtualize 4 overheads. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, if you do want a full set of pre-outs, and or you want the option to pay some extra and add Dirac Live bass control, then the TX-RZ30 is available from Accessories Less for $850. So still well under $1,000, still within your price range, and that gives you everything the NR7100 did, plus a full set of pre-outs and the option to add Dirac Live bass control if you want to. So I think those Onkyos are providing more value right now in your category.
Yes. If you want to stick with Denon, unfortunately, I think it makes the most sense to spend the money to get the 3800 just so that you're having the similar experience with the Audyssey. And
you can do all the virtualization there for upwards, all of that if you want to.
Yeah, I know it feels like overkill, and I hate recommending that, but it's so hard to accept. So this is my thing.
The 3800 is a great receiver that checks like all the boxes you could want at a reasonable price, but it is over $1,000.
That's right. So here's what I say, and this generally is true. Either get the thing that you actually want, or just get the cheapest thing that is barely acceptable to you.
Sure.
Because if you get a middle ground, it's going to feel like you just should have spent more. So either get something so cheap that you're like, man, I'd have to spend double. And therefore, I don't feel so bad about the fact that this thing is not doing everything I wanted to do.
Sure.
Versus, getting almost there. And then if I only spent $200 more, if I only spent $400 more, that's like going out to dinner twice these days.
I wouldn't consider the Onkyo RZ30 a half measure whatsoever. Like that is every feature I can conceivably think you would want in your setup.
You end up having to buy a mic or waiting for that OmniMic to come your way.
Well, no, because the Onkyos let you use the pack-in mic.
Oh, that's good.
For Dirac, so you don't even have to buy an extra mic.
All right, so we're going to these are some questions that have been moved around a little bit because of me having to leave in like half an hour, maybe a little bit less.
Oh, like you got like 20 minutes at the most. So I think this will probably be the last one you do, but
maybe. So, Henry, as we covered in detail in this podcast, Henry examined the option of buying a Kaleidescape system from every angle, and then he also got into the details of getting a Zidu player and backing up his own disc collection before discovering that nobody in this area will program this universal remote control system to work with Zidu. At the end of it all, he's now decided to just barrel forward and continue buying physical discs until that truly isn't an option anymore. In terms of convenience, if he can have all of his discs at his fingertips and on display inside of his home theater room, that'll be good enough. So to that end, his current disc shelf is nearly full now. It's the one mounted in the middle of the back wall in place of an acoustic panel that used to be directly behind his seat. I will tell you, the solution to this problem is a multi-disc. Remember we used to have those DVD players that had could hold 500 discs?
Oh yes, but good luck finding one that could do Ultra HD Blu-rays, Tom.
I know. But that's a solution to your problem.
That quite literally does not exist.
Anyways, it's this shelf, and it's not nearly full at all, but maybe there's more there.
In the photo, it wasn't full. It's nearly full now. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I'm scrolling.
It's an old photo.
Speakers, there's stuff. We previously mentioned that since he has some distance from the back of his seat to the back wall, and since he has a lot of other absorption panels mounted in his room, it probably isn't noticeable as far as sound goes to have switched from an absorption panel to the disc shelf directly behind the seat. But on first blush, it maybe isn't our favorite choice of location for the disc shelf. So since he's going to need to expand his disc shelf space anyway, what if he were to take down the two sidewall panels that are just in front of his dipole surround speakers and replace those with two disc shelves that are the same size as the current absorption panels? Would that noticeably degrade the acoustics in the room, or would it be fine since you still have two panels on each sidewall plus front wall ceiling and rear wall treatments, and including an option to put a panel back in the middle of the rear wall directly behind the seat again? Okay, this is what I think.
Okay,
I think that there is space directly below all of these panels for a long, thin shelf or two that you can just
down low,
just go low on both sides so that they just run all the way. You've got a little table there, so clearly there's some room, right? So just put panel, just get even if it's just the cinder block thing, you know what I mean? Just build a shelf that's just barely above the ground and then one shelf on top of that, or buy one that will allow you to have a nice low shelves all the way across underneath the panels, front to back, and that's your solution. And then you don't have to take down panels. That's what I think.
That said, I mean, the panels he's proposed taking down, and it's not like it's being replaced with bare wall; it's being replaced with a shelf, and you could.
I can't figure out which panel he's talking about. There's the ones behind him.
Yeah, he's got 3 panels along each side wall.
Yeah.
So he's talking about the rearmost of those 3 panels, the ones that are just in front of the surround speakers that are mounted on the side walls.
Those are certainly the ones that you could take out and have the least. Those were the ones if you said you have to remove 2 panels, which ones you're going to remove? I'd say the ones on the ceiling, but then you would say no, it has to be on the wall, and then I would say those.
And
2.
I would take those 2 down before I would have taken down the one on the back wall that's directly behind the seat. I would rather put a panel back up directly behind the seat and take down those 2 sidewall panels, the rearmost sidewall panels, not all the sidewall panels, but the rearmost ones. So I don't have any problem with that idea. In fact, I kind of like that idea. I kind of like the idea that you got, your DVD shelves to either side of your seat, and then you can put up the panel back on the back wall. So I
like my idea.
I'd give that a shot. You know what? I like Tom's idea too. I like that as well. If you ever need even more expansion, that's definitely
that would be. Because you will have a lot more than you think.
Yeah,
and they will just be all there. So. John in Ireland. John now has his new ELAC debut 2.0 speakers and a Denon X1800H receiver, so it's time to rerun Audyssey. We've previously said why we think it's best to manually set the Denon to only use one subwoofer pre-out, even though he has 2 sub-outs, and they can measure and set the 2 subwoofers separately. He already owns a Y splitter, so no problem there. Mm-hmm. But currently he has 2 different subwoofers, and one of them is clearly more powerful than the other. In a case such as that, does it still make sense to only use one sub-out and a Y splitter, or would this be a case where setting the Denon to use 2 sub-outs would actually be best? So during the times where both subwoofers are playing, you want them to be getting the same signal. So you want to use that Y splitter. And then when that other subwoofer drops off, well, that one sub is only getting that one signal anyway. So, I don't know how it makes sense to flip them. The reality is you may, step one is to just run it with the most powerful subwoofer to begin with, and leave the other one out and see how bad it is or how good it is. And because the chances that second subwoofer, which is less powerful, is actually contributing positively to this equation is not 100%. You know, it could very well be making things worse at different frequencies. So I would at first run it with that single more powerful sub, and then add the second sub and see if you even think that that's a positive impact.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe just reading between the lines here, he's maybe trying to avoid some of the sheer trial and error and tedium because it's like, hey, I've got this system. It says you got two subwoofers, you connect them to two separate subwoofer preouts. We're going to automatically set the distances and levels for those two subwoofers for you. We're going to claim that we're going to optimize that dual subwoofer setup with independent settings. And he's like, does it maybe work? Maybe? Because that would be a lot easier and save me a lot of time if I can just do it that way. And it's like, well, if you want to spend even more time, you could try it, because there are instances where essentially by sheer luck, it does work out. Like, we're not going to say there's never been an instance where using the two subwoofer outputs hasn't worked. Sometimes by sheer luck it does. But the problem with using the two independent subwoofer outputs is that it is just setting those distance settings purely by timing-based signals. It's not looking at phase relationship. It's not looking at how does the frequency response change when we alter the relative phase between these two subs. It's just sending out a ping from sub 1 and sending out a ping from sub 2, and purely based on timing, calculating the distances. Like I say, sometimes by sheer luck that works, but more often than not, it does not work to give you the best phase relationship response. And then the problem is it then applies the equalization to the subwoofers summed together with that non-optimal distance setting locked in place. And if you were to manually go back later and change the two distance settings to give you a better phase relationship between the two subs, it can't then hold on to that manual change and equalize them again, which is what we would need it to do. If it equalizes it again, it automatically sets the distances back to its automatic settings and undoes the manual improvement that you made. So unfortunately, there's just no way to optimize the dual subwoofer setup by using the two independent sub outs on an Audyssey system. We wish there were, but unfortunately, that's where we end up. So the solution here is, I like Tom's idea. Maybe you just try the single most powerful sub, because we know in John's setup, he's actually got kind of an open room. So the chances of the lower powered sub is actually completely adequate, and the more powerful sub just happens to have a bunch of extra headroom that you never use. That's pretty unlikely in John's case. It's much more likely that the more powerful sub, maybe it doesn't even have fully enough to pressurize like the entire open space, but the less powerful one definitely doesn't. We're pretty darn sure that's going to be the case here. So I agree with Tom. It might actually be worth just using a single sub, in this case, the more powerful one, obviously. But if you are doing the two subs, it is just going to be the sheer trial and error, the tedium of you are just using one subwoofer output from the tenon. You are going to have to manually, before running Audyssey, by trial and error, set up that phase relationship between the two subs to get the most uniform response they are able to achieve, and then let Audyssey do its thing, assuming, it, as far as you've told it, having only one subwoofer, not two.
When he first ran Audyssey after getting his new ELAC debut 2.0 tower front speakers, it automatically set them to full range. He's on board with manually changing them to small, but is 80 hertz always the best choice for the crossover frequency? If Audyssey is detecting the speakers as full range, does that mean they're capable of playing lower and using a lower crossover frequency as a result? What would happen if he set a lower crossover frequency to his front speakers than 80 hertz? Well, you really risk them catching on fire.
You can tell Tom doesn't want you to do this. He's telling a little fib to that effect.
So we've never said that 80 hertz is the optimal.
Right.
We've never said that. That's never been said on this podcast. What we have said on this podcast is 80 hertz is a great place to start.
Yeah.
And even with speakers that are tower speakers, which we just talked about not too long ago, there are reasons why you might want to set it higher
Yeah.
than 80 hertz.
Yeah.
Not just lower because they can play lower, but higher because the interactions between the speakers and the subwoofers, the subwoofers in the room are creating dips or nulls or peaks near that crossover region because of how they're all interacting with each other and where they are in the room and everything else. So you might actually want to say, can you send them lower? Absolutely. I mean, that's
you could try it.
You could try it, right? But, you start at 80 because you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And 80 is where like many speaker and let's say sound designers are expecting that things are going to start crossing over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality.
It frequently works out well.
Yes. And therefore, if their speakers are all crossed over at 80 hertz when they're designing everything, and then you're like, well, no, I'm going to set mine on 30 because my speakers can play flat down to 30, which they can't. But if they could, you may just be setting yourself up for failure anyways.
Yeah.
So yes, start at 80. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to lower it, Rob's talked in his 12-step guide 1,000 times about how to change the crossover, do listening tests over and over and over again until you want to throw up, and then there you go.
Yeah. So the notion is, you've gone through the tedium, you've gone through the trial and error of optimizing to the best of your ability your dual subwoofer setup, and hopefully at the end of that process, you have achieved pretty darn uniform response, at least across like a 3-seater couch area, for just the 2 subwoofers on their own. And now you're coming along and introducing not just 1, but actually 2 other bass-producing things into that sound wave phase relationship, and they are going to interact. And so the lower you set that crossover frequency, the more interaction there now is between the 2 subwoofers that you optimized on their own, plus your front speakers now as being another thing generating that bass. So the odds of that kind of messing up what you achieved with just the 2 subwoofers on your own goes up and up the lower and lower you have your front speakers play.
It's so weird how people think that if they don't have their speakers playing as all the frequencies that they can play, that they're somehow losing.
They're wasting the capabilities. That's the fear, right?
I wasted this money on this speaker that can play so low. I'm like, yeah, well, kind of. But at the same time, that's not the only thing you got.
Very often speakers that can play lower can also play louder.
And they have their own stands built in, so you didn't have to buy stands for them. So you saved money on stands by getting this speaker that can play louder in your big old room. Can it now also play lower? Yes. You put I have vehicles that I have never hit the top. I've never put the accelerator to the floor and seen just how fast it can go.
Sure.
Did I waste money buying that engine? Should I have gotten a smaller engine? No. I mean, that's what came with the car. I didn't buy the car for the engine. I bought the car for the entirety of it. And you bought these speakers for the entirety of the speakers. And it's okay if you cross them over.
Yes.
At any point. I don't care what your receiver says.
Speaking of which, if you're into even a little bit more time and a little bit more trial and error, one thing that I do like to do is, we did the thing before. We listened to just the subwoofers themselves, no other speakers playing, tried to optimize the 2 subs. Another thing you can do is listen to each speaker all by itself across a 3-seater couch with a sweep playing on repeat. Because one thing that is very readily noticeable when you play 1 speaker at a time is at some point in that bass sweep, what you hear in the left seat versus the center seat versus the right seat across that 3-seater couch, it starts to become non-uniform from 1 speaker at a time. And sometimes you luck out and it's a pretty darn low frequency, but sometimes it's a considerably higher frequency than the speaker itself is completely capable of playing lower. But in your room, with where your seats are positioned from left to center to right seat, you get a very different response from that 1 speaker. So case in point, my own theater, small little theater, enclosed, little rectangle of room, almost a square, and I've got my speakers. My speakers are completely capable of playing down to like 40 hertz pretty darn linearly, all on their own. My front speakers are. But my left speaker versus my center speaker versus my right speaker, like my center speaker, I need to cross it over at 90 hertz. If I cross it over to 80, we're getting into the territory from left to center to right. I'm getting non-uniformity. My front left speaker, I could play it down to about 60 hertz. For whatever reason, it lucked out. I can sit in all three seats of my three-seaters couch from my front left speaker and play that down to 60 hertz, and it's uniform down to there. But my front right speaker is right around 80 hertz, So I settled on a little bit higher crossover frequency for my center and an 80 hertz crossover for my front left and right speakers. So if you want to get into that, you can be like, hey, where do my speakers individually start becoming non-uniform across a three-seater couch?
Yeah. I'm going to get that question read, and then I'm going to go.
Sounds
and Rob
good.
Can do his thing. Okay? I can't believe that the maintenance guy's going to come during this podcast. I'm shocked. Kris has been using an NX7, which is the lamp-based 4K 60 model right before JVC switched over to their laser light engines. Yeah. He's put about 13,000 hours on it with a few lamp changes along the way, of course. It's about time for another lamp change, but of course he's considering upgrading the whole projector at this point instead. He saw that AV Science has some B stock of RS2100 units, which is the same as the NZ7 for under $5,000. And then there's the newest NZ700 model with MSRP of $10,000. Mm-hmm. But some deals on that model can be found, but it's not going to be as low as $5,000, though, of course. Yeah. So what do we think? Do we think it would be a good move to go after either of these models to replace his NX7? What would we do personally in his position? He doesn't care about having 4K 120 support, as gaming on his projector is not a priority. So what's the best way to spend his money? So the NX7 is an older projector, but not an old projector. Like, sure. I would not consider this to be an old projector. This man or person, Kris can go either way, has put 13,000 hours on this projector already. Yep. That is a considerable amount.
It sure is.
The laser light engines will last, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is a user who's like, I might actually have be the first person to have to go through and upgrade my laser light engine, or to get to the end of that life in like an unreasonably, what they consider to be an unreasonably.
They rate them at 20,000 hours to half brightness from when they were brand new. So it's like if you had put 13,000 hours on a laser one, it might not be unreasonable to consider replacing it at this point.
That's right. So if it were me, because what you're saying here is you don't really care about 4K 120. Yeah. What are you going to care about? You care about the fact that it can get brighter. You want to have more HDR, basically. Or I don't remember it. The NX7 had HDR, right?
Yep, it had HDR, and it had the frame-by-frame dynamic tone mapping, but the original version of it, they're now on the third generation of that frame-by-frame dynamic tone mapping.
So, I mean, I would prioritize being able to swap the lamp out easily over getting the newer thing that's a little bit brighter and has a laser light engine that you may find that you're actually going to be losing money in the long run, because you could be still swapping out lamps and for $200 to $500 a pop versus a $5,000 projector. That's my take on it. Go on, Rob.
Okay. Yes. Are we bidding adieu?
I'll stick around for a second because I want to hear some of your response.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, he asked, what would we personally do if we were in his position? It's like, I think I'd buy one more lamp.
Yeah.
I think after this next one, maybe it'll be like time, or you've saved up enough. But I think I'd probably buy one more lamp. So basically, if you went from an NX7 to an NZ7, it's, the RS2100, but the NZ7 is the same thing. It's like, that is a case of a little bit of give and take. You gain a little bit on the NZ7 over the NX7, but you lose a little bit as well. So the main thing that you gain is you do get 4K 120 support on the NZ7. If that had been a top priority for you, that could have been a good argument for it, but he's like, no, that's not an argument for him. So it's like the native panel contrast on the NZ7 actually went down a little bit. It's the same as the NP5 at that 40,000 to 1. The NX7 that you already own had 80,000 to 1. Now, honestly, that's not really very much of a visible difference, because we're talking about the black level having having gone down half a nit. But, that, and you just multiply by 2. But, it's like, just objectively speaking, you're not gaining anything on the NZ7 is kind of the point there. It's not really particularly much brighter, although you can run the NZ7 brighter with less fan noise than the NX7. So that could be an argument. Maybe you're trying to get maximum light output from the thing and the fan noise has bothered you. But then the NZ7, the laser one, it lacks a DCI P3 color filter. Your NX7 has a DCI P3 color filter. Now, when you use that color filter, it cuts the light output by about 25%. But if what you value most is the widest possible color and not the maximum light output, then your NX7 actually has a leg up on the NZ7. So the NZ7 is brighter, it's capable of appearing brighter with the lower fan noise, but with not as wide color. And then the contrast is actually a small step down, but then you gain 4K 120. So it's like, a little bit of give and take. So the model that had upgrades across the board, everything is an improvement, would have been the NZ8. But you're not going to find that for $5,000. Its MSRP, it is still selling at $16,000, so $11,000 more. You can find NZ8s used for definitely under $10,000, but not $5,000. But that was the one that was easy to say, hey, upgrades across the board. So then lastly, he's like, well, there is the NZ700. You can find it under $10,000. It's like that one is predominantly an upgrade across the board. It's still 4K 60, the NZ700. It doesn't have 4K 120, but we know that wasn't a thing. It has less zoom and lens shift range, but still quite a bit of zoom and lens shift range. I don't think it's any type of problem, but it's a tiny little downgrade there. The NZ700 also no longer supports 3D. The NX7 did, the NZ7 supported 3D, the NZ8 supports 3D, but the NZ700 does not do 3D, so that's a deal breaker for some people. But otherwise, the NZ700 is like a small upgrade across the board. But all of these, it's like the NX7 was never a slouch. Never, ever a slouch. So I think I would just buy another lamp.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I stuck around for the whole thing.
You did?
All right. I'm going to go. You guys have a great week. I will not see you next week. I have a thing to do.
Oh,
so.
I have just learned of this already then.
No, I told you. The 9th I was going to be out.
Oh, you told me a long time ago. That's right. And I forgot all about it, but now you reminded me, and that's good.
I am reminding you. My hair will be shorter next time we come back because this is a mess. All right. Have a great week.
All righty. Farewell, Tom. And there we go. We'll transition over to Just Rob, and I'll answer the last few questions we got in here because I think we got time, and most of these are pretty darn short. So let's go on. John T. There's a small room in John's house where he pretty much has free reign, within reason, of course, to do whatever he pleases in there. He was using it as his home office, but he has now retired. Congratulations. So he's converted it into a dedicated home theater space. He's currently got his 65-inch LG B7 OLED, his Denon X3800H receiver, Monitor Audio Radius series compact speakers all around, for front, left, center, and right are the Radius speakers from Monitor Audio, and then he's got ELAC Debut surrounds. He's got 4 of Keft's Egg satellite speakers from 2001. I miss those. Hey, that could have been added to that list before of speakers that we miss and aren't around anymore, discontinued, with the Keft Egg speakers. They were very handy and they were good. So he's got those as front heights and rear heights. Didn't mention what subwoofers he's using, but I'm assuming he's got 1 or 2 of those in this room as well. For disc playback, he's using a Panasonic UB820 Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Fantastic player. So he bought that B7 OLED back in 2017 when it was brand new, and he had Vincent Teo from HDTV Test over to his place to calibrate it in person. He has never dared to touch the settings ever again after having Vincent Teo over to adjust his TV. So it's been a great TV. He's really, really enjoyed it. And he's also very happy with the audio side of things. He's like, even though it's kind of a mix and match, a little bit Frankenstein system, he's really happy with sound. And I'm not surprised by that. All of those are very good components, and there's no reason they shouldn't work very nicely together, all aiming for pretty darn neutral sound. So he doesn't particularly need to upgrade anything, but he's a victim of fear of missing out, and he's got some money set aside right now that can go towards the home theater. So he's questioning what he ought to do with it. He's mostly considering a TV upgrade. It's been almost 8 years now since he got that B7, and surely his B7 has dimmed a little bit over time just from age and usage, even though it's been such a gradual change, he hasn't really noticed it. He hasn't looked at it and gone, oh, that's clearly dimmer now than it used to be, because it's been happening a little by little by little. So he's wondering, would replacing his B7 OLED with, say, a C5, LG C5, right up to date, would that be a quote-unquote night and day difference, or would it only be slightly better? He's fine spending the money that he set aside, but he doesn't want to spend it purely for the sake of spending it. If he's not going to notice a big improvement, is it going to be worth it? Okay, so let's say you put a B7 side by side with a C5. You would be able to see the difference. The C5 is definitely objectively capable of being brighter. Some of the tone mapping choices have changed a little bit. You could spot the difference. But is it night versus day? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it is not night versus day. I'm going to say outside of a side-by-side comparison, you, being a home theater enthusiast, might be looking at the C5 and go, oh yeah, I can tell that's brighter than my B7 used to be. Maybe you'd notice some of the tone mapping differences if you're watching HDR10 content. But would you say this is as different as night is from day? No. The changes in OLEDs, even going all the way back to 2016 up until now, it just hasn't been that type of a dramatic difference when you're going to say like the C5 model. So yeah, I'd have trouble justifying that if what you're looking for is this is as different as night is from day, because just going to OLED from anything else is the gigantic change that you can readily notice and doesn't require a side-by-side comparison. Going from one OLED to a little bit better OLED it's a little bit better OLED, but it's not night versus day. So the biggest difference you could get, because I'm the person who even struggles to say it's really worth going to a G5 over a C4, something like that. It's like most of the time, that contrast that you're seeing, it's not making use of the maximum light output headroom that the newest G5 with the brightest OLED panels that there are. It's like for those rare little specular highlights that get to that maximum peak light output, or for a sustained whole screen, very bright image. It's like those things are noticeable on a G5 versus, say, a C4. But the majority of the time, they look way more similar to each other than they don't. Most of our content is up to around 100 or 200 nits, and both of those are doing those no problem. Your B7 is doing that no problem. So that's why I say it's just not a night and day difference. I've said before, there are some people who live for those specular highlights. They live for those moments when the TV gets noticeably punchier and brighter in those little specular highlights. And if that's what you live for, then the G5 can totally be justified. But what I would say is most likely to give you hey, I notice all the time that this is still an OLED. My B7 still looked great. I'm still not going to say it's night versus day. But if you go to one of the top tier quantum dot OLEDs, so that's going to be from Samsung or Sony, or possibly from Panasonic now, because you could look at that Z95B model that is available if the largest screen size you're interested in is 65 inches. Then that's possible from Panasonic too. So sorry. I was wrong about that. The Panasonics are using the same 4-layer stack as the LG G5. So put that out of your head. It would be a very close equivalent to an LG G5. But yeah, the quantum dot OLED, so it would be Samsung or Sony. We're talking like a Sony Bravia 8 Mark II specifically, because the Bravia 8 used LG's panels. The Bravia 8 Mark II uses the quantum dot OLED panels from Samsung. Or looking at a Samsung, I would point you to the 90 series, like a S90F, because I'm not a particularly big fan of the matte screen finish on the 95, the S95D or the S95F. I'm not a big fan of that matte screen finish. I prefer the S90D or the S90F, which is using the same quantum dot OLED panel, but has a glossy screen finish. So those are ones I would look at because they are brighter. They're noticeably brighter than your B7. The color remains completely saturated all the way up to that maximum brightness level. So it's like that's where you're gonna potentially see the most difference on a regular basis. I'm still not going to say night versus day, but it's the most noticeable change you could get. So to me, the bigger change that you would notice on a daily basis would be to go to a larger screen size, go to a 77 or go to an 83 inch, something like that. You know, if it's getting a modern one and a screen size increase, I think that is easier to justify than staying at 65 inches and then just getting a modern one. But yeah, there are differences to be had. I'd probably go quantum dot OLED if you're going to do it and stay at the same screen size. Okay, let's go to Andrew. Andrew has been using an Epson Home Cinema 4000 model projector with a silver ticket projection screen for a while now. He's been looking for an upgrade, but he wants to keep the price down. Also, he is shopping in Canada. So he came across a used Epson Pro Cinema 6040 UB for sale, only 500 hours of use on it, and it still comes with the full original package, which means it includes a spare lamp and a Chief branded ceiling mount. The asking price in the listing was $1,500 Canadian, but that is negotiable. What do we think about that? Would it be a worthwhile upgrade? What's a reasonable counter price, that he could offer lower than $1,500? Okay, so this is a 6040 UB, not a 6050 UB or a 5050 UB. We're going back a couple of generations here to the 6040 UB, which means it had HDMI 1.4 spec bandwidth. It didn't even have HDMI 2.0. So this had the 10.2 gigabits per second maximum bandwidth, which means that the 6040 UB tops out at supporting 4K at 30 hertz. This one cannot do 4K at 60 hertz, let alone 4K 120. That's definitely not. It can do 4K 30. It can accept 4K 24 and show that judder free, but it cannot do 4K 60. It does accept and show HDR10 signals, not HDR10 Plus, and definitely not Dolby Vision, but it will accept HDR10. The 6040 UB, though, was never fantastic at showing HDR10. They released a couple of firmware updates to alter how it handled HDR10 along the way, but it was never really great at showing HDR10. With the 6050 UB and the 5050 UB that came a generation later, they added that 16-step slider so that if the HDR10 you're watching just overall looks a bit too dim or overall looks a bit washed out, you can manually alter the tone mapping with that 16-step slider, but the 6040 UB did not have that. So some HDR10 content just looks way too dim overall or washed out overall, and there's no real way to conveniently adjust for that. It came out when HDR was really quite new, so they just didn't quite know how to program for HDR yet, which means that it was really popular back in the day when the 6040 UB was the latest and greatest. It was really popular to pair it with an Oppo Blu-ray player or Ultra HD Blu-ray player, because the Oppos had really good HDR to SDR conversion. And when you fed HDR that had been converted to SDR by the Oppo, you could retain the wider color space, but you were getting rid of that HDR10 flag, and the 6040 UB did a really good job of showing an SDR signal with the wider color as long as it didn't have to do the HDR tone mapping itself. So it's like there's a little bit of pause to be taken here, because it's like, if you want 4K 60 support, right? If you're going to game on this thing in 4K, it's like, well, it just can't do that. Tops out at 4K 30. You can feed it a 1080p 60 signal just fine if you want to game on it that way. The latency that it had wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the greatest. You're in the sort of 45 millisecond range. So it's like, it's playable, but if you're playing Twitch games that rely on the fastest response, it wasn't a particularly great choice for that either. So all of it is a little bit of, okay, pump the brakes a little bit. It's not like, a clear-cut no-brainer. But if you're fine with all of those limitations, what I can definitely say is that if you were to compare your home cinema 4000 to a Pro Cinema 6040 UB, it is an upgrade. It is unquestionably a better looking projector. The black level is noticeably much deeper on a 6040 UB than it is on a home cinema 4000. The contrast that you're seeing at all times is noticeably better on the 6040 UB. So if you sort of put yourself in the mind frame of, okay, let's not really consider it a 4K HDR projector. It can kind of do those things, but not supremely well. But if you're thinking of like, is this a much better 1080p standard dynamic range projector? It is noticeably, obviously so over the Epson Home Cinema 4000. It's a very noticeable upgrade in that sense. So I would probably offer about 1,200 Canadian dollars. I think that's a very fair price for that package that they're putting together. That's where I land on that. If you're okay with all the limitations I laid out with, it is an image quality upgrade over the 4000. If that's what you wanted, you're definitely like, what else can you get for $1,200 or $1,500 Canadian that would be an obvious upgrade over the 4000? It's like all of those are going to have limitations. You know, you could look at like a refurbished Epson 4010 or a Pro Cinema 4050. But both of those have similar limitations to the 6040 UB, and then their black levels in contrast are not as good. So the 6040 UB is actually, better. The 4010 and the 4050 tone map HDR10 a little bit better than the 6040 UB ever did. They've got that, little bit of an advantage there, but I would probably take a 6040 UB over either of those. And then it's like all of the $1,500 or less DLP projectors that you could buy don't have as deep black levels or as good contrast. So, in that sense, it is an upgrade, not quite a no-brainer, but I can certainly justify it if you want to go that way. Just be aware of the limitations. Okay, let's see. I think we can hit one or two more here. Christian says, if you get a projector that has horizontal lens shift, does using that cause any distortion whatsoever to the image? This is the one that Tom emailed Christian back, apparently. Would going to great lengths to make sure your projector is perfectly centered with the screen still be optimal, or could you have the projector 8 to 10 inches over to one side without any degradation to the image whatsoever, so long as the projector has actual physical lens shift? We're not just talking keystone correction here. So good news, the physical lens shift is great. It does not distort the image in any way whatsoever, barring like some defect in the lens or in the mechanism or something like that. Like a properly implemented physical lens shift is the ideal way to be able to put your projector where you don't have to like painstakingly place the entire chassis of the projector in just the right, micrometer spot. It's like, no, it can be a little bit off-centered from the physical screen, and then the physical lens shift can square up that image just perfectly. One thing to keep in mind, though, is this throws people quite a bit. Sometimes people put the projector on the mount or on the stand. They know that it's, a little to the left or a little to the right or a little up or a little down, but they're like, hey, I've got the lens shift, so I can perfectly square this up within the frame of my screen. And then they go to do that, and they're getting right up close to the screen, or they're back by their projector if it's manual lens shift, and they're looking through a pair of binoculars and they're pixel peeping, and they're like, I can never quite get the edges of the screen of the image to perfectly line up with the frame. You have to be aware that the physical roll, pitch, and yaw of your projector, the chassis of the projector, those still need to be adjusted to be perfect. And then the lens shift is just jogging the whole image left or right, up or down. That it's not doing anything to fix rotational issues that are causing just the tiniest bit of a keystone effect on the projected image. And you got to remember, like a tiny movement in the roll, pitch, or yaw of the chassis of your projector can result in a visible keystoning effect, because it's being, magnified so much by the time it gets out there to your projector. So sometimes people are annoyed. They're like, how come the physical lens shift isn't enough to get me perfect pixel alignment? And it's like, no, the lens shift is just jogging the whole thing left or right, up or down. That's all it can do. If you've got a slight little bit of geometry distortion, adjust the yaw, pitch, or roll as necessary of the chassis of your projector, as though you were painstakingly putting it right in the middle of the screen. But yeah, the great news is You can offset it left to right a little bit if you have that horizontal lens shift. It's not going to distort the image. It's just going to perfectly jog it to the left to right to line things up. Okay, so let's see. I think I'm going to call it there for this week, which means we do have one question left on the list, which was Eric's, and then we have that whole thing from when Saucy went to the what was it, Audio Advice Live. That's getting a little long in the tooth now. We're going to have Cedia to cover as well after all that, but they are still on the list. Who knows? Maybe one of these weeks we'll be short on questions again. We'll be able to tackle some of those. So want to let them know that they are still there. But yeah, Eric, you'll be first up next week. So let's head back up to the top here, and we can say that we want to thank our listeners of the week before we go once again. If you want to do a PayPal donation, just come to our website, avrant.com. Over on the right-hand side of the desktop version, there is a picture of a cup of coffee there. It says support AVRant, and that'll take you to PayPal where you can make a donation if you'd like to. And if you want to support us monthly automatically, it is patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thanks to our 125 patrons over there right now. I want to thank John T. for sending in that movie code for Tom to test out. And then, yes, we want to thank all the folks who send us notes of gratitude and encouragement. Those include this week John M., Phil, Kris, John T., Dan D., Jack, Andrew, and Eric. Thank you so much for those notes. We really appreciate them. Big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. If you want your question answered on this here podcast, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. That is our email address, and by far the best way to get in touch with us. So, on behalf of Tom Andry, I am Rob H. This has been AV Rant. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.